Hey everyone, what we're going to do today is a jig I call my Ned Creature. I'll be honest, before the Ned craze got real big, it was just called a Creature. But I changed the jig head to this Midwest finesse jig, and I jumped on the bandwagon. But basically, that's what it represents. It is a Ned style bait in a hair jig form. So we're going to start with some 210 denier flat wax nylon thread in olive and get our base started. Uh, by the way, it's a Midwest finesse jig since I already said that, but the color is green pumpkin camo. It's hard to see because the light's glaring off of it. And the hook we have is a 1/0 Mustad 32 746. Good hook for this. And our base, we're just going to go about halfway. That's what we're looking at, and I'm going to go back up again because we're going to get a little bit more thread on here to lock in our material. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some bucktail. This is olive bucktail. And what you want is about a hook shank and a half behind the end of the hook. That's about right. And we're going to cut this right off at the head. That's where we're going to wrap it all the way up to. And the reason why is I want to build up some bulk along the hook shank since we don't have a collar. And wrap it down. Actually looks pretty good. Want to make sure we got enough coverage, unless we might have to put some more in here. Get our shorts out of there. And it looks like we're pretty good all the way around. I'm going to hold it there and I'm going to crank it down now and wrap it all the way back up to the head. That looks pretty good. So we're going to go back down, and right where we started there, we're going to take, this is olive brown, UV olive brown cactus chenille, or I'm sorry, polar chenille. I was just tying jigs with cactus chenille before, so I got that on the brain. And we're going to take this polar chenille, we're going to tie it in. And advance our thread. And you're only wanting a small piece because we're not going to wrap it too far. And again, push that flash back that's in this stuff. I'm using leftover pieces. I should have got a bigger piece and started with it, but I figured this will work. It's big enough. I really like this stuff. It can be a little bit of a pain to work with to make sure that flash gets back where it's supposed to be. But we got that piece tied in, and now we're going to take some brown bucktail. And I'm going to want this to end right where maybe a little bit past the flash, but not much further. And again, I'm going to cut that it's so we're tying it in right at the head there. Only this time what I do is I put it in and I tie down here. And the reason I tie there first is I want this thread to be butted up right against where we ended that polar chenille, because that's going to give us our flare. And push it and work it around. And we're going to add a second clump. Sometimes the bucktail works better tying it in clumps rather than layers, rather than just putting it all on at one time. This really isn't that hard. It just, again, it's the extra steps that make it look that way. And don't worry about trapping any of that flash down. That's going to happen with this polar chenille. You're going to get those stragglers that go back and forth. And so once I got enough coverage with my brown bucktail, I'm going to cinch it, and then I'm going to work these butt ends all the way back to the head of the jig. Now we got our brown in there, and I'm going to take another piece of this polar chenille, see where I have it cut off, and I'm going to start that right where we butted our brown bucktail up against the other polar chenille we had tied in. You're only going to make maybe 2 wraps. You don't want a lot, but you just want that little extra layer in there. Why did I get that close? Now, all our polar chenilles tied in. We're going to take some, this is olive saddle hackle, olive grizzly, or grizzly olive, however you want to say it. And we're going to turn it up like this. I already have these cut to length, but you want the feather to go back beyond the bucktail. And what I do is I just tie one in on one side, like so, and we want the end of that feather to go right up against the jig head. And we'll do the other side. It's looking pretty good. And now the last part of it. This is all of deer belly. And what we're going to do is we cut a clump of this. You're not going to have to measure this out or anything, because you just cut it off at the base. It has enough length, perfect length for this. And what I do is I'm going to put maybe the butt ends a little past the jig head itself. And we're going to make just a loose wrap and another one. And we'll work it around that it's half and half. And I'm going to turn this back. And I'm going to take another clump of it. we're going to put it in the same way. 2 loose wraps. Try to keep it on top. And we'll work it just like we did for the top of the jig. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it. I'm going to tighten it down. See how what we got there? You see how that's all, it looks discombobulated at the moment, but it'll get better, trust me. And I'm going to push this back down, and I'm going to go and get my thread up to the top and come in behind all that material. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to whip finish it. We're not going to have any head cement on this. With 2 tendoneer, we don't really need it. 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're not done. Now we got to finish it. Got our thread cut loose. This is the part that's always the messy part. And that's trimming this. I can't hold that. That ain't going to work. I'm just going to vacuum my floor later. But use the head as a guide. You're just going to put your scissors against the head, and you're going to trim this up. And what I do is all this stuff that's heavier in here, I'll actually come down a little further and trim some of that out and even it up. Thin it out. And between the bucktail and the deer belly hair, it's going to keep this somewhat buoyant. So it'll actually stand up on the bottom. I apologize for taking so long trimming this up, but that's the worst part of this. It's a little tedious. Now I'll show you what we have. That is how it's going to sit. It's not as hard as what it looks. Just like I said, it's a little tedious. We'll get our hemostats on there so that way you get a better view of how this actually is. You want these, like I said, you want these feathers a little bit longer than your bucktail because that's where your action's going to come from. And in the water, which you'll get to see this week, I promise over the weekend I am going to finish my tank up so we can get this in. But there you have it. Apologize for this taking a little bit longer. Again, it's not that hard. It's just a little tedious. But There you have it, the Ned Creature. Give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.